always known that I wanted to be a teacher. I love school, I love learning, I love kids. Coming out of college, I have a vision of, inspiring my students to love reading and to get into their books, and, that's my passion, and I want to pass that on to kids. I realized last year, halfway through the year, end of the year, my students didn't like reading. During tax testing, and when you have to take out a book and read, that's the only thing you can do. My kids didn't want to. So I knew that I was doing something wrong, that whatever I was doing wasn't inspiring them to be readers or good readers. So I really thought through the way I was teaching, how to encourage authentic reading and not just the standards or skills, reading skills in isolation. My kids didn't have their foundation of what they actually do when they open up a book and read. And they needed lessons on how to choose a book that is just right for them, instead of just grabbing one that looks pretty thick and what it looks like I want them to be reading, and then going through the pages, stumbling along, but not realize that they're not understanding it.
So at the beginning of the year, when I would go into Miss Vanderjack's classroom, and when she would do her lessons, the kids stayed in their desks kind of spread across the classroom. And she would get, some kids paying attention every now and then to her lessons. And then they would go off to do their work. They might pick up a book off the shelf. They didn't really look at it much. The conversations that they were having, if there were conversations around the room, were not related to reading at all.
So we had to teach them how to choose books that were just right and that were at their level, that they could read and understand and enjoy. I'm so glad for the A+ Challenge Network, to be in Caraway. My experience teaching this year would not be the same without their support. They've provided the bridge to do what I know is best for my students. Removing all excuses of, but I have to do this, but I don't have materials, but I don't know my students' reading levels, and figuring out a way to get us there so that what I'm doing in my classroom matters to me, matters to my students, and makes a difference in their reading lives.
When I go into her room now, she gathers them to the front of the room for the lesson. It's a shorter lesson so she can hold their attention. When she sets them off to their reading, there's a little bit of chatter at the beginning, but then once those kids open up their books, you can just tell that they're engaged. I mean, they're sold on that book because just a silence comes across the room.
And so I got to this year, I started liking reading a lot. I read more books than last year.
I picture in my mind what is it, what's about, and where are they, and who's in there. We just did bookwork in the other grade, so in this we got to the meeting area and learn how readers can read more and understand.
I've seen them standing outside the bathroom reading books, walking to lunch reading books. So there's just, kind of a buzz around her classroom now about books. They don't talk much about what she's changed in her classroom, because he's doing science and the other teacher's doing math, but they all have the same kids. And the science teacher said, whatever it is that you're doing in your room is working. I can tell that these kids are getting stronger at this work. She's not afraid to take this risk. It's so different from what she was doing before. And she has dove in and no holds bar, she's all in.
This book has taught me that I can reach my goals by trying, and I can make the best that I can to read more books and set my goal. I would like people, like children, to read these books because they're interesting and they can tell a lot and they can inspire people. And they can have a lot of imagination in the book.
Research shows time and time again the only real indicator of their success on tests, as college entrance exams, is that they're avid readers. And so how can we encourage that in schools? We need to dedicate time to reading in class. If you don't take that time in your reading classroom, for they can choose books and get into their books, then why would they do that at home when they have other choices to play with their friends and do video games and things like that? And if you want a rigorous, relevant reading classroom, you need to give them choice about what they want to read so they can tune into their own interests, not what the teacher thinks that they're interested in. And push them along in reading with more thinking and critical thinking, and not just, okay, this is what happened, but why is that important? And what kind of person are they? And how does that change your life? It does.